All the way from the start, I can feel it in my heart, like all the way from the start.
Hey, what's going on out there? I'm Sean Devine. Hope you all are doing well. Today I've got a new video where I'm going to show you what microphones, vocal microphones specifically, are in my mic locker. I do not have, a ton of mics. I don't even really have any that are, extravagantly expensive or rare or anything like that. But each of these mics serves a very specific purpose for me in terms of recording vocals. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's talk about the first really dedicated vocal mic that I ever purchased, which this is the Shure KSM32. And this is a condenser microphone, really nice for vocals. It's got a very bright present top end to it. And so even if you're recording things like overheads for drums, it picks up a nice sheen. But I get a crispness out of this. A lot of people ask me when I record with this which mic I use because it has a very signature top end to it. So again, this was the first, really good vocal mic that I purchased. I had, maybe it was an MXL, like a $50, $60 mic to start with, and it was pretty terrible. So when I was actually in college, I was studying to get my degree. I went up to Guitar Center and I said, you know what, I need to get a good mic. And some artists that I had been working with owned this. And so I had heard it. I had actually mixed the vocals that they were recording with this, and I really liked the sound of it. So again, went up there, dropped, I think it was like $500 for this at the time, which was a lot. I've really gotten a lot out of this mic. It has been across the country with me a couple times. You can see it's a little bit beat up. We've got some marks of war on this thing, but it has definitely tracked a ton of vocals that I've worked on and done a really good job with it. So this is a solid mic. Definitely check this out. Again, it's the Shure KSM32. Next up, we'll talk about the Shure. This is the legendary SM7B. So a lot of you out there are familiar with this. This is actually the microphone that Michael Jackson used to record a lot of his vocals with Quincy Jones, and it gets a lot of use in studios still. And it's used more popularly for things like this, broadcast, narration, radio. So it has a very signature tone to it. It's a really thick sound that cuts through. I will say that at least my SM7B is a bit noisy. So this is a dynamic mic, meaning it shouldn't necessarily have a lot of self noise, if any. But this thing, I don't know if it's the shielding or what, but I get a pretty significant white noise. And so there are some things that you can use to get some cleaner power in terms of the preamp. This thing requires a lot of power. If you're using like a budget audio interface or something that doesn't have a really good pre with a lot of gain on it, you're gonna have some trouble getting what you need to get out of the SM7B. There are some solutions that make the SM7B a better option, which are products like the Cloud Lifter. I also have the Cloud Lifter Z, which gives you some variable impedance options, and these are really essential, in my opinion, to have alongside the SM7B to get what you need to out of that mic. But in the right environment with the right setup, the 7B, still a good mic. It's a classic. Let's go ahead and talk about this mic that I'm actually recording these vocals right now, and I use this for all my tutorials. This is a Rode Broadcaster. And this, actually, my friends at Rode saw that I was using the 7B for a lot of my narration and my tutorials, and they said, hey, we got a mic that you're going to like a lot better. And so I was skeptical because I had been using the 7B quite a bit. But they sent this over, and this is what I would describe as a 7B on steroids, if you will, because I don't have the white noise problems. It's extremely quiet. You're going to hear any noise in my room, hard drives, whatever, but the mic itself, it's not picking up any kind of noise, and it's easier to drive with the preamp. It doesn't require as much gain. It also has a better top end. It's got more crisp brightness to it. The 7B is a lot rounder in the bottoms and the mids. This is going to give you more of the balance. You still get the low end and the mids, but you get the top end as well. I don't have to crank an EQ like I do with the 7B. So this has been a very welcome addition. And actually, you know, since this mic is set up quite often, almost all the time, because I'm doing tutorials constantly and different narration with this mic, so I end up using this a lot for vocals. It's ended up in a lot of my songs. I've actually used it on other records as well, and it sounds great. So it's become one of my favorite mics for a lot of different uses, not just narration and, you know, kind of the broadcast style vocal. Moving on here, let's see what we've got. This is a wireless mic from Rode that I use for vocals just when I'm kind of roaming around the room. It comes with a Rode Link receiver, and so this is just a nice dynamic mic to use just wirelessly. You know, you could use it for performance or whatever. You could take this with you, you know, on the road for gigs, whatever. I use it, again, just roaming around when I'm doing tutorial videos or whatever, and I can't be right in front of the preamp or another mic here at the desk. Next up, I actually have two of these. This is the Rode NT1, and this is a you know, a budget, most would call it a budget mic, because I think it runs at about 200 USD. But these are amazing mics for the price. I've done a lot of videos where I let you hear what you can do with these with some good mixing in a decent room with a decent pre. The NT1 is a very capable mic, and so I can set these up in pairs with the other one that I have. I don't do ASMR, but if I did do ASMR, these are great mics for that as well. But you know, just for rap and singing vocals, NT1s are definitely a mic that you want to have available. You know, if you want a mic you can beat up and take around and still get a nice sound, highly recommend the NT1. I also have an NT1A, but that one's a little bit brighter. I wouldn't say harsh, but it's just not quite as warm and well-rounded as the NT1. So personally, I do prefer the NT1 over the NT1A. This is the NTUSB, so very similar mic to the NT1, but the great thing about this is that I can take it with me on the go with a laptop and still have a solid mic that I can do vocals with, and I don't need a preamp. Obviously, you know, you just hook this up through USB. You got the USB on the bottom there, and then you can just hook that up to your laptop. No need to have any kind of really complicated setup to get this thing going. It's very quiet. I've done some videos with this as well if you want to check it out, but I love just having this one in the gig bag, travel bag that I can use wherever I happen to be, whether it's a hotel or if I'm, you know, just hanging out with an artist and we don't want to have a super complicated setup. That's a nice one to have in the stash. Next up, this is a SM57. And so a lot of people are probably more familiar with these mics for, you know, drum usage. A lot of people use them on the snare drum. I use these for, you know, miking up certain percussive elements, but also for vocals. Sometimes I just like to plug this in, and if I'm going to do like some yelling or, you know, screaming or something loud, something really high dynamic for, you know, a production, maybe I'm going to throw in a little Vox sample that I'm going to distort heavily or whatever. These are nice mics to have around. Just, you can really abuse them in terms of the level that you send into them, and they're also really affordable. I think these run for like $100 or less, so just a good utility mic to have. And again, it works on a variety of different sources. Last but certainly not least is the Rode K2. This is the vocal mic that I usually have set up, you know, dedicated for vocal recording, vocal performances, where it's especially critical. You know, I want something very detailed, picking up all the nuances of a vocal performance. This is the mic I go to, and it is a tube mic. So it comes with an external power supply, which is this box right here. So you need this to power it up, and this has the tube inside it. And so you get a really warm sound with this, and it just has this character to it. It's the vintage character that a lot of you all have come to know. You've heard this on a lot of different records, you know, people using tube mics. It's a distinctive character to it, is the way I would describe it. So for those of you who have, you know, tube preamps like me, I have the Aphex channel tube pre. You know, this is probably not the best mic to go with. It does sound really good paired with the Aphex channel. But in terms of just tube pre's itself, this one lends itself better to solid state pre's. So it sounds fantastic with my RME pre's. You know, if you had like an SSL, something like that, and you wanted to get a warmer character, use it with a more transparent preamp. And I've just found that this mic sounds fantastic with a really good solid state pre, but a little bit too toasty, if you will, if you're using both the tube power supply for the tube mic and then also a tube pre on top of it. Just taste thing, you know, some people want to go as warm and as vintage sounding as possible. For me, again, I'm just more looking for, you know, some warmth, but I like the crispness and the precision of the solid state with this particular mic. This one is going to be a little bit more expensive. This is, I would say, the most expensive mic in my collection, maybe this and the KSM32, which it's still not terrible for this quality of mic. I think it's about 700 USD, something like that, but you can get a lot of great use out of that. All right, y'all, so those are the microphones in my mic locker that I am using for vocals. And so it really comes down to picking the right mic, but the setup of the mic, using the preamp properly, you know, setting up your preamp to get the best tone out of the mics. That's very important. So for instance, you know, some of you out there could hook this up to, you know, your low budget interface, and maybe you turn the preamp way too loud, your room's not treated. This mic is not going to sound even close. You're probably not even going to think you have the same mic as me, given that I set it up, you know, properly with a pretty good preamp in a treated room, or at least a room with some reflection filtering and control. You're going to think this is a much different mic and a much better mic in that scenario. So just to point out, and that goes for even some of the nicer, more expensive mics. This K2 right here is going to pick up everything in your room that is possibly wrong. You're not going to get noise out of this. You're just going to get the noise in your room or the problem areas there. So you could set up the most expensive, you know, Rode or Neumann or whatever. And if you're, you know, in a not great acoustic environment, you don't have an optimal setup, you're not pairing it correctly with the preamp, you're not setting the preamp right, doesn't really matter. But again, these are the mics that I use and I get great results with. I trust for my vocal tracking. But if you have any questions about any of the mics that I talked about, feel free to leave a comment below. If you have some suggestions for vocal mics that you've gotten great results with, I'd love to hear about them. I know everybody else would love to hear some recommendations as well. If you learned anything in the video, please like, subscribe, and consider sharing. We'll talk to you soon.
A lot of label A&Rs didn't believe in me. Now it's straight to voicemail, D&D. The same dot is reaching out, you better check the feed. Gotta know, man, I've been coming for